Welcome to the shadows, where the light fears to go, and the weak turn away before they even begin. If you made it here, then you already know what it means to walk alone with the sound of silence louder than screams. This is not for the pretty or the polite. This is for those of you who have stared straight into betrayal, swallowed it raw, and came back laughing. You weren't meant to be understood. You weren't born to be liked. You were born to destroy illusions. Every time they dressed themselves in masks made of lies and smiled in fake virtue, you stood there, smirking, while your hands reached through the fog and ripped their image to shreds. And the best part? You smiled doing it. You didn't flinch. You didn't explain yourself. You didn't pause for applause. You did it because you had to, because someone needed to, because you were done being lied to, stepped on, ignored, overlooked, and underestimated. And now here you are, cold-blooded, calculating, no longer asking for the damn seat at the table. You built your own room and torched theirs. If you're still here, then listen. Not everyone can handle this kind of honesty. This is for the real ones, the broken glass souls, the ones who cracked but sharpened instead of shattering. This world wasn't made for you, so you made your own. If that's you, then I want you to hit that subscribe button, not because it's a trend, but because people like us need to stay connected. Comment below if you've ever watched it all burn and felt nothing but calm. Like this video if you've been the storm they tried to ignore until you wrecked everything they pretended to be. This isn't about ego. This is about awakening. This is the dark corner where the fake can't breathe, where the truth doesn't whisper, it screams. And right now, your voice is echoing in places they never dared to walk. Keep going. You're not here by mistake. They thought image was everything. A curated smile, polished words, soft lies dressed in silk. But you saw right through it. While they were busy being adored by people who didn't know them, you sat back with a smirk knowing damn well none of it was real. And when it all came crashing down, when their fragile tower of praise collapsed under the weight of truth, it was your fingerprints they found on the edges. Not because you had something to prove, but because you were done pretending you couldn't see the rot underneath. And you didn't say a word. You didn't need to. The silence was your signature. That smile, it wasn't arrogance. It was justice. They wanted you to be soft, to forgive everything, to bite your tongue and keep the peace while they played victim with blood still on their hands. But you gave them silence, and then you gave them consequences. You watched as their fake persona cracked, and you didn't even blink. They underestimated you because you didn't brag, didn't show off, didn't need the spotlight. They forgot. It's always the quiet ones who write the ending. And you rewrote the whole damn story. You walked into the room and shifted the air. They could feel it, that something in you had changed, that you were no longer there to play nice. You didn't need revenge. You were the reckoning. You didn't shout. You didn't threaten. You simply existed in a way that made their lives sweat. They told themselves you were bitter, but deep down, they knew you were better. Better because you survived it all, because you saw them for what they were and didn't flinch, because you smiled as the veil dropped. Do you know what kind of strength it takes to be the one who sees the truth when everyone else is hypnotized? To be the one who doesn't clap for the pretty lie? They'll call you cold, ruthless, toxic. Let them. They called wolves dangerous too, and lions, and storms. And yet, they all bow when the wild walks through, so don't shrink for their comfort. Don't dim your vision so they can live in delusion. You weren't meant to fit in. You were born to expose. That's why they fear you. You didn't just break their image. You demolished the shrine they built to themselves. Piece by piece, lie by lie. You knew that what they showed the world wasn't who they were behind closed doors. And when you tore it all down, they didn't just lose a reputation. They lost the control they had over people. They lost the illusion of innocence. And when you stood there with the ashes at your feet and a smile on your lips, it wasn't cruelty. It was freedom. It was power. It was the moment the truth stood taller than their fantasy. And still they talk. Still they whisper. Still they try to paint you as the villain. Let them. Every time they open their mouth, they reveal just how shaken they are. You didn't raise your voice, but you raised hell. You didn't lift a sword, you lifted a mirror. And they hated what they saw, because deep down, they always knew their image was fragile. That one truth, one whisper of honesty, would undo everything. And you were the one bold enough to speak it, to live it. Don't ever feel guilty for that. Don't ever apologize for being the one who chose reality over comfort. You didn't destroy them, they destroyed themselves. You just removed the curtain. You showed the world what they really were. And when the light hit their shadow, they burned. You don't need to explain that. Truth doesn't ask for permission, and power doesn't apologize. You were never the villain. You were the end of their performance. They'll try to rebuild, to tape the image back together, but it will never look the same again. You cracked the glass, you showed the fractures, and every time someone looks too close, they'll see it. That's your legacy. Not just the destruction, but the reveal. The courage to see and say what others were too afraid to. That's rare, that's real, and that's lethal. So when they ask, how did this shit work again? You laugh, because it wasn't a trick. It wasn't a scheme. It was truth. Pure, unfiltered, devastating truth. You didn't need an army. You didn't need applause. You just needed your silence, your stare, your willingness to say, enough. That's what did it. That's what brought the empire down. You were never the bomb. You were the match. And now they walk on eggshells, careful, nervous, watching their words, because they know you're still here, still listening, still waiting, not with hate, but with memory. They know you never forget. You don't forgive because you don't need to. Forgiveness is for those still hurt. You've healed. And healing turned you into someone they never wanted to meet. Someone who knows. They tried to reduce you, to make you small, to discredit you. But every lie they told only made the truth louder. Every whisper about you only made people more curious. And when they looked deeper, they found you. The unbothered storm, the calm in chaos, the one who smiled while the false gods fell. So remember this, every time someone underestimates you, let them. Let them think you're done. Let them forget what you're capable of. Because when the time comes, and it always does, you'll remind them without warning. And once again, they'll ask, how did this shit work again? And you'll smile. Because the answer is the same as it's always been. You saw them, you exposed them, you ended them, and you smiled doing it. You stood there in the wreckage, not broken, not bruised, but reborn. There's something hauntingly beautiful about the way you didn't even raise your voice. You didn't have to. You let your presence do the damage. You let your silence become the scream. While they scrambled to protect their facade, while they cried out to their audience of blind followers, you just watched. Like a hunter who already knew the prey had been caught the moment it panicked. That's the part they'll never understand. You weren't trying to win a war. You were the war. And the moment you stopped pretending, it was already over for them. They said you were heartless. No, you were just done. Done carrying the weight of other people's reputations. Done shielding the guilty with your silence. Done pretending not to notice the manipulation, the gaslighting, the two-faced smiles. You had a choice. Stay quiet and be eaten alive, or speak truth and watch them devour themselves. And you chose truth. And the world shifted. They didn't expect that from you. You weren't supposed to be dangerous. You weren't supposed to fight back. But you did. And you didn't just fight. You finished it. Now, every room you walk into carries that tension, that chill in the air. They feel it before you speak. It's in your eyes, the cold confidence of someone who has nothing left to prove. Because the ones who know you, the real you, they understand. You don't strike first. You don't go looking for war. But if it comes to you, you end it. Clean. Quiet. No theatrics. Just results. That's why they fear you. Not because you're loud, but because you're unshakable. They used to smile around you, fake, polished, rehearsed. Now they flinch. Now they calculate their words, afraid they might expose themselves without realizing it. And you enjoy the quiet. You enjoy watching them struggle to keep up the act, because you've seen behind the curtain. You are the curtain now. The boundary they can't cross. The consequence they never thought they'd face. You weren't born cold. Life made you that way. Betrayal sculpted you. Lies carved your spine. Disrespect hardened your hands. And now they want to act shocked that you no longer play nice? No, you were trained for this. Every backstab taught you precision. Every disappointment refined your silence. Every fake smile sharpened your instincts. They thought they were breaking you, but they were just preparing you for this moment. The one where you finally said, no more. And when you said it, the universe listened. You gave them a chance. Many chances. You watched them lie. You watched them twist narratives. You watched them beg for sympathy while they buried knives in others' backs. But then, one day, something in you snapped. Not with rage, not with tears, but with clarity. And in that clarity, you found a weapon more powerful than anger, truth. You realized you didn't need to fight dirty. You just needed to speak. And when you did, it was like a nuclear blast of reality they couldn't escape. And when the dust settled and their house of cards lay shattered, you didn't gloat. You didn't scream. You smiled. A quiet, knowing smile. Because it wasn't about revenge. It was about release. You let it all go. And in doing so, you let them fall. They were never standing on solid ground, just illusions. And you were the earthquake they never saw coming. What's ironic is, they still try to rebuild. Still try to recapture that image you tore down. But it's never quite the same, is it? It's like a mirror glued back together. It reflects something, but not clearly. The cracks always show. And the people around them, they notice now. They see the lines, the false shine. You change the way others look at them without ever saying more than necessary. That's power. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that commands it. They don't talk about you the way they used to. There's fear in their tone now. Respect, maybe, or regret, but never comfort. Because you represent the one thing they can't manipulate, the unfiltered truth. You walked away, but your shadow still lingers, not haunting, just reminding that no matter how loud they shout, no matter how pretty their lies, someone remembers what really happened, and that someone is you. You're not cruel, you're precise. There's a difference. Cruelty lashes out blindly. You, on the other hand, see everything. And when you strike, it's deliberate, calculated, measured. You don't waste energy on revenge. You let the truth do the work. And that's what makes it so devastating. They were ready for a fight. They weren't ready for exposure. It's lonely at times, isn't it? Knowing what you know, seeing what others refuse to see. But there's freedom in that too. You don't live in a fantasy. You don't worship false idols. You don't clap for people just because the crowd does. And that kind of clarity, it's a gift, a weapon, a shield, and yes, sometimes a curse. But you carry it well, because someone has to. Someone has to be the one who doesn't look away, who doesn't forget, who doesn't pretend. You're not the villain in their story. You're just the one who stopped letting them be the hero in yours. So let them talk. Let them spin their stories. Let them paint you as dark, as dangerous, as cold. Because deep down, they know if you ever chose to speak again, everything would crumble all over again. That's the kind of quiet power you carry now, and no one can take that from you. Not now, not ever. Because when they ask again, how did this shit work again? You'll still be standing, smiling, watching, while they dig through ashes, trying to salvage a version of themselves that only ever existed in their imagination. And you'll walk away. Because you already won. You always did. But winning doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes in silence, in the stillness after the storm, when you realize you're not carrying their weight anymore, that weight of false narratives, of pretending not to see what you saw, of shrinking yourself to let them shine. That weight is gone, and what's left? You, stronger, sharper, colder, maybe, but clearer than you've ever been. And clarity is a weapon most people are terrified of. You didn't win with fists. You won with focus. While they played games, you played the long war. And now, you're the one they all remember. They won't admit it, but they look for you in every room. They check their words twice when they know you might be listening, because you exposed what they feared most, their truth, not just to others, but to themselves. You held up a mirror, and they hated you for it, because once you see the monster in your reflection, it's impossible to ever feel clean again. And you walked away clean. You carried your scars like medals. No shame, no regret. Just proof that you were there and that you survived. They told you to move on, but what they really meant was, forget what we did. You didn't. Not out of spite, but because memory is your armor. You wear what they did like steel across your chest, and it shines every time they try to pretend nothing happened. Let them squirm. Let them lie. Let them pretend. You don't need revenge. You're the reminder, the ghost of their own making. And when they sleep at night, it's not guilt that haunts them. It's you. Because you were the one who never needed to shout to be heard, the one who didn't beg to be believed. You simply existed, and that was enough to unravel everything they built. That's what scares them most. That's why they run. That's why they block, delete, avoid, and rewrite history. Because even now, your truth walks louder than their performance, and it always will. You're not a villain, you're a standard. The line in the sand they couldn't cross without being exposed, and they hate you for that. Because you made them face parts of themselves they worked so hard to bury. You weren't cruel, You were honest. And that honesty, it lit fires they couldn't put out. Because when you smiled while ripping their image to shreds, it wasn't malice. It was clarity. The realization that their mask didn't deserve your silence any longer. And now look around. How many people are still wearing masks you can see right through? How many smiles you know are hiding knives? That's your power now. You see everything. And no matter how good the act, you know what's real and what's not. You've earned that vision in blood and fire and betrayal. And no one can take it from you. Let them keep performing. Let them keep chasing claps, likes, validation from crowds who don't even know the story. You don't need an audience anymore. You don't need approval, because your victory isn't loud, it's eternal. You walked away with your soul intact. They lost theirs trying to keep up an image that was never real to begin with. And if the world ever doubts who you are again, you'll smile. You'll let them underestimate you. That's the game, isn't it? Let them get comfortable. Let them forget. Let them think you've gone soft or disappeared. Then when the truth is needed again, when another mask needs ripping, they'll feel it. That cold chill, that eerie stillness, that sharp silence. And they'll remember, you're still here. You never went anywhere. You just stopped playing by their rules. Because once you've burned the stage down, there's no going back to being part of the act. You became the fire. You became the ending. And you smiled, not because it was easy, but because it was finally real. Let them watch you now. Let them study your silence, your moves, your smile. Let them try to copy your strength without understanding the cost. They'll never get it, because they didn't live it. They didn't earn it. They didn't walk through hell and come back untouched. But you did, and that makes you untouchable. And now, every time someone tells a lie, every time someone builds an image out of fiction, every time someone tries to silence the truth, they'll remember what happened when they tried that with you. They'll remember how you smiled, stepped forward, and without a word, tore it all down. You didn't need an army. You didn't need a stage. You didn't need anyone's permission. You became the reckoning. And in that moment, when the truth lit the sky on fire and their world came crashing down, you didn't flinch. You smiled. Because they asked for the truth, and you gave it to them, unfiltered, unforgiving, unstoppable. And now, you move different, not with arrogance, not with noise, but with the kind of quiet that terrifies the ones who remember who you are and what you did. Because the ones who were in the room when you finally stood up, they know what it cost you to stay silent for so long. They know how many times you held your tongue, bit your lip, forced a smile just to keep the peace in a war you never asked for. And when you finally let go, when you chose to stop protecting the lie, they felt it. Every single one of them. You didn't raise your voice. You raised the standard. And suddenly, their little games weren't fun anymore. Suddenly, their image wasn't enough. Because you exposed them. You put a flashlight in the cracks. And when the truth came pouring in, they couldn't hold it back with filters and captions and carefully worded statements. Because you weren't fighting for attention. You were fighting for truth. And truth, real, cold, raw truth, doesn't beg to be believed. It simply stands and lets the world see. That's what you did. You let them be seen, stripped bare of all the filters, the smoke, the costume. And what was underneath? Nothing. Just dust and ego. And maybe the ghost of a conscience that hadn't been used in years. That's why they can't stand you. Because even now, months, years, lifetimes later, your silence is louder than their screams. You walk by, and they remember. They remember how you never needed revenge. You just needed one moment, one window to show the world who they really were. And when that moment came, you didn't hesitate. You smiled, and you ripped their image to shreds like paper in the wind. Not out of hate, not out of spite, but because some lies are so big, so dangerous, they deserve to burn. And now, you're untouchable. You're the name they whisper behind closed doors, the one they say, be careful with in quiet conversations. Because you don't bluff, you don't warn, you just act. And when you move, you end stories.